and welcome to Loops and More with Meg. For today, I'm going to be doing another book review, and this time I'm going to be reviewing Swordcatcher by Cassandra Clare. I read this about a month and a half, 2 months ago now. It's been since 2024, but I do think it was November range of that time. And I decided this is one I wanted to go ahead and review on here because the next book is coming out sometime this year, and I think it's fairly soon. So I thought, what not a better time to review this than now. This is the first adult fantasy book by Cassandra Clare. I have read quite a few of her young adult series that she has had throughout the years. Mortal Instruments and The Infernal Devices were some of my favorites high school and college time. But I have kind of grown out of those and haven't continued on with any of the newer stuff just because I was getting pretty burnt out of the way that those are written and the characters and whatnot. But I wanted to give her a go on adult fantasy and see how I like it. Now, before we get into this review, I will be doing a granny square, and I'm planning on pulling in the gold, the red, the black, and I think the white from the text of the author to make that. So I will be having that in the bottom here to kind of, you can watch that as I talk about this review. All the yarn I'm being used this time is from Big Twist. I got a big haul of that from Joann's, so I am using that one, and I am really liking that yarn. So I'm quite sad about the news of Joann, and hopefully I can find the Big Twist yarn somewhere else. So, without further ado, let's go into this book and what I thought about it. This is set in the city of Castellane, and a swordcatcher is someone who stands in the place of the prince. So that way, if something assassination were to happen, it is against this random person and not against the prince himself. So Kel, our main character, is a young orphan who was chosen to be the body double or the swordcatcher for Prince Connor. And he lives this life of deception of being within the royal court, even though he is not a royal himself and still remembers his life growing up as an orphan. And then you have Lynn, who is a physician and like magic builder within this world. And a lot of it is forbidden knowledge to her because she is a female of this trait, and therefore she cannot go to the colleges and the school that is available for it. And there's a lot of mixed kind of religions and magical systems within this. And she delivers a really cool, diverse world that has some cool political scheming, some morally gray characters, and it definitely has a slow burn tension throughout, which you'll either love or hate. The main themes of this book is definitely portrayed around power and identity. Kel struggles a lot with who he is within this world because nobody actually knows him truly because he's not allowed to talk about himself except for Prince Connor, who is his closest friend within this world, but is someone that you're working for really your friend, and that kind of dynamic. And then there's also this underlying thing about forbidden knowledge and what it means to keep knowledge from certain people and why you keep it from those people. And that was really cool. And then of course loyalty and betrayal and that kind of thing has a very huge theme throughout this as well, because everyone is constantly shifting alliances and you don't know exactly who to trust, which makes it quite cool to kind of question what all is going on. Now for some common critiques of this book. It definitely has some pacing issues. It can feel incredibly slow, and it is a huge, like, thick book. Like, it is, let's see, it says 602 pages, but it feels thicker than that. I don't understand, side note, how some books can be 900 pages long and be the same, and then this one's 600 pages and feels so huge. I guess it's paperweight and all that kind of jazz, and typeset and whatnot, which I understand as a graphic designer, but it still doesn't make sense when you physically pick up books that are so different in page count. But anywho's, it does have some slow bits. The world building is quite immersive, and the story takes its time setting up the different political intrigue, and the different aspects of that can be very slow and there's not a lot of action. Next is the character depth. Kel and Lynn are super compelling, and I really like them, but all of the side characters can feel a little bit underdeveloped and not as fleshed out as you would like. I definitely do not remember many of the side characters, even though some of them played quite a pivotal role throughout the story. I can't recall even 2 months later what some of those characters were or what their personalities were. And I feel like that might be an issue going into book 2 when I eventually pick it up to read. So that can definitely be a downside to this one. And I think the last common trait that I saw quite a bit is that this definitely is heavily a first book. It doesn't feel like it wraps up many of the storylines at all and just leaves you hanging on almost everything. And that can be a little frustrating to not get like a payoff at the end of the book, because it doesn't really lead to anywhere besides leading you into book 2, which obviously is what a first book should do, but it's still, you want to feel like some sort of connection to what has happened in this book, and I definitely could have felt more of that than I did. Gotta rest my hand. It's heavy. Now for some common love. These are things that I definitely liked about this book. I thought it had really cool world building. Castellane is a city that has so much intrigue and like decadence and danger, and it just makes a very compelling backdrop. It reminds me the tiniest bit of the main city from the Lies of Lachlan Moore, because so much of the city plays into how these characters are interacting and what they're doing, and that's really, really cool. It also has a little bit more of that kind of Victorian city kind of vibe to it, even though it is a magical world. It's not like a medieval setting. It definitely has a little bit more of a higher like class system and everything within it that reminds me a little bit more of Lies of Lachlan Moore as well. Next is the political intrigue of this. I do think there is some cool aspects that are happening here and some mysteries to be solved, and I think that is really compelling and something that I would like to see more of. I really do like political scheming throughout books. I think that started within the Game of Thrones. When I first read those, I was like, ooh, this is interesting. And I definitely feel like there's more and more fantasies that are starting to build off of that type of scenario. Another common love is if you like Cassandra Clare's writing within her different books, this takes it to a slightly different level. I do think that her writing in this is better than I've read of any of her other books. And so that was definitely a plus to this one. Not that her writing was ever bad, it was just very straightforward. And I think in this one, she definitely elevated it up a little bit more to be within that adult class of fiction. And finally, the relationship between the main characters of Kel and Lynn is something that I really enjoyed, because it wasn't necessarily focused on romance. Like, they definitely have a spark, but it's more about whether or not they are going to be friends or rivals, or if they can work together to better this world or not. And that kind of tension between that was really interesting. So I look forward to seeing more between these two characters going forward and what they're going to end up doing for this world. And that really brings into what I find to be the most like interesting part of this story, is the tale of the two characters and how their destinies are kind of intertwined. Because you have Kel, who is so constrained by who he is. He is bound by the duty and the secrecy of being the sword catcher. And then Lynn struggled to like break free of the limitations that society has for her. And their journeys really mirror each other in how they are trying to learn how to be themselves within this world, but also navigate where the power is and how they can use that to the advantage of the people that they care most about. So we are now to the end of my review for this, and I wanted to share with you the Granny Square. I do think it's really cute and really matches in well with the book. It has the white in the middle and then the black, yellow, and gold, question mark. It's a little bit more yellow than gold, but I still like it for this one. So I'm happy with how this one came out. Overall, this is like a really interesting first book to the series. So I am going to continue on with the series and hope that each book gets better and better. I think overall this one is a solid start, and I gave it like a 3.5, almost 4 star. I think it really does live around the 3.5 mark. And yeah, I think it's a pretty cool start to a fantasy series that I am going to continue on with to see how this really shakes out. And hopefully, book 2 will be higher than 3.5, so that way I'm excited to continue on with the series. Because if it goes lower, then I probably won't continue on, just because this isn't one that I was like blown away with. So that is it for me. Let me know if you read this book, what you think about it. And as always, happy reading, stay cozy, stay crafty. Bye.